So what was all that about enlarged holes and tight cracks? Hello, huge movie fanatic Nate stopping on by once again, coming at you for one of my famed movie/Blu-ray reviews. Today I'm going to be reviewing the movie and Blu-ray of Ghost World from 2001. And then I'll be reviewing, after I review the movie, then I'll be reviewing this Criterion Blu-ray release of Ghost World that came out in 2017. I'm seeing a 2017 date on the back of it. Talk about the movie, then I'll talk about the Blu-ray. So my history with Ghost World doesn't go back very far. It only goes back to basically this past winter when I found it streaming for free. I remember seeing the cover to this movie in the video stores, you know, in the early 2000s or all the way through the 2000s, you know. The cover was kind of boring to me, you know, just like, wasn't it just like a white cover and just a picture of these two chesty girls just standing there like nerds or whatever. So I don't know, the movie really, the cover never really interested me, you know, beyond just the fact of the two chesty girls standing on it and stuff. So I never knew what the hell this movie was about. This is a title, you know, a DVD cover that I can remember just seeing for ages and ages and ages, probably 10 years or whatever, close to, in video stores, and, you know, when I was doing half-price books clearance shopping and stuff. I'm sure this title often appeared in like the clearance half-price books DVD, you know, aisle or section or shelf or whatever. It wasn't until just this past winter that I first saw it on streaming for free. And I was kind of impressed. Now, basically, the guy who directed this movie did this documentary that I saw. I don't know if it came out in 96 or 95, but I think I saw it in like 96 or something like that, or 95, by the name of Crumb. He did this documentary by the name of Crumb about this. Was this guy like an artist or something? This tall, lanky, you know, gangly, skinny guy or whatever. So I ended up seeing Crumb in 96 or 95 or something like that. I subsequently, I mean, I'm not the biggest documentary guy in the world, so I don't think I cared too much about it, but I did end up buying the soundtrack on CD because I really liked that old music as well. So I ended up, you know, that, you know, just the soundtrack CD was a pretty cool, you know, to see the movie, if nothing else, was a cool, to introduce me to that cool music and, you know, those songs that were used in particular in that documentary, and subsequently me getting the soundtrack and stuff. So basically I think that was probably the only movie or thing that I ever saw from this director. This movie, I guess, is based on a comic book. Of course, me not being a comic book guy whatsoever, I knew nothing about the comic book of Ghost World, which I guess is about these two, you know, teen girls, or Enid and Rebecca or whatever. And you know, interestingly enough, as I'll show you after I review the movie, the Blu-ray Criterion does come with like a little reproduction of a, you know, one of a comic or whatever. Give you the gist of the comic or whatever, which is really cool. But I would imagine even in the comic book circles that, you know, the comic book of Ghost World and, you know, the characters or, you know, whatever, it was probably not the most popular thing in the world. I don't know. I have known nothing about the comic book world whatsoever. But this movie opens with basically the characters of Enid and Rebecca, played by whatever her name is. What the hell's her name? I mean, she's blah 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 Thora Birch, who I always thought was cute, and you know, like in Hocus Pocus and that kind of stuff. I was a teenager when Hocus Pocus came out, and I worked at a Suncoast motion picture company. They sold movies and stuff, overpriced movies, and we'd always have to play, well, it seemed like it was something that went on for a decade, but it was probably just 1 year, maybe 1 or 2 years. Like in October, we'd always have to play Hocus Pocus, and I remember thinking that Thora Birch, even at that age, was cute. Now, see, I was a teenager too, so, you know, I don't think we're probably that, you know, our ages are probably that different, so it's not like I'm a pervert or anything. And then, of course, Rebecca is played by, I think, like a 15 or 16-year-old Scarlett Johansson in this movie as well. So the movie begins with them basically just graduating high school, and it's kind of a movie about two, you know, these two girls play these two friends that are kind of, you know, they're not popular, they're, you know, they're very much like kind of my kind of mindset, where it's just like you look at the world just like with, you know, rolled eyes, like constant rolled eyes. It's like, you know, just rolled eyes pretty much at almost everything, because, you know, one who's smart kind of realizes that the world and popular everything and culture and just people in general kind of are just crap and everything sucks or whatever. So these characters are kind of, you know, they're probably two best friends that are just graduating high school when the movie begins, and they're, you know, I guess in a way, if you really want to think about it, the next phase of their lives, or the, you know, first phase of their adult lives is beginning, or supposed to begin, and the whole movie is kind of just the exploits of, you know, I guess what's going on with these characters, you know, after graduation and during that summer. It's interesting, like when Enid gets the diploma, she also has this note attached to it which says she failed a course and she's got to take this summer art course or whatever, which is kind of amusing as the movie goes on. One thing that I should mention before I forget is this, you know, this feels like very much what the movie Napoleon Dynamite would go on to feel like when that came out in 2003 or 2004, whenever the hell that came out. So this is like a female version, you know, although this came first, this, you know, this feels like, I saw Napoleon Dynamite first before I saw this, so this feels very much like a female version of, you know, Napoleon Dynamite. Instead of like just geeky ass, you know, male main characters, you've got more kind of buxom, busty, you know, kind of more hottish girl main characters, if you will. Although, you know, Scarlett Johansson's character, unfortunately, starts kind of strong at the beginning of the movie and kind of fades away, and the movie, as the movie wears on, it definitely focuses more on Enid and her exploits with Steve Buscemi, whatever the hell you want to pronounce his name as. And, you know, I've always been a fan of him ever since he, you know, I don't know what the first movie I saw him in was, maybe like, you know, when the Coen brothers were just putting him in bits, parts in Miller's Crossing and Barton Fink and all these kind of stuff like that. And, you know, I probably saw him obviously in Reservoir Dogs, probably in '91 on video or whatever. And I was always, without really even putting much thought into it, I was always a pretty big fan of Steve Buscemi. I thought Steve Buscemi, whatever, I always thought he was just, I don't know, for just this kind of an everyday man. And it was just something so, there's something so human about him in most of the characters he plays. And let's face it, I mean, he plays kind of the same character in a lot of the movies he does, and I've always just gravitated towards Steve Buscemi, just, you know, just as a performer, because I think he's just very likable, very relatable. He's not your average, you know, male movie star where it's just, you know, handsome and brawny and all this kind of stuff. But I always thought that Steve Buscemi was, you know, a character, a performer, or an actor that, you know, is one that I always held in relatively, you know, medium to high regard. So after graduation, we just see the exploits of Enid and Rebecca just doing this and that, harassing this, you know, this boy that's kind of their age at this, you know, like convenience store, and doing this and that, and just frequenting these different places. This one diner that's supposed to be like a 50s retro kind of a diner, but it plays like, you know, ghetto rap hip hop in the little jukebox. And it's just kind of, you know, this movie, like I say, I mean, when I even sit here and think about it, I just think of, you know, Napoleon Dynamite, even though this movie came first. It's just a very similar kind of thing. I mean, like, if you didn't even read the credits, you'd probably think that it's possible that the same guy, you know, made both movies, to be honest, because this movie is very much shot like that as well, where it's kind of just, you know, subtle, you know, I guess one could really almost say boring, you know, photography and photography and editing that really doesn't, you know, draw attention to itself, and doesn't really, you know, it's just kind of, I guess, for lack of a better word, more or less boring, you know, photography and editing. I guess just doing enough to get things covered and get, you know, the basic point across. But what ends up happening is, you know, during their early exploits and early on in the beginning of the movie, one of them ends up coming across this singles ad column in the paper, and finds and is reading these things, and comes across Steve Buscemi's character's, you know, post about rendezvous that, you know, he had with this blonde in some supermarket or something like that. And I think one of them, I don't know which one, probably Enid, decides to, let's call this guy and prank this guy, and, you know, say that we're the blonde, and we'll tell him to come to this diner, and, you know, oh, wear that sexy green cardigan. So they, you know, Enid and Rebecca and that kind of, that similar aged boy guy that it turns out later on that I guess Enid had a crush on or whatever, who was working at the convenience store, end up going to the diner at the same time and trying to see him. It's just kind of a joke. It's really mean spirited in this kind of stuff. I mean, kids are like this, so that's what really sucks. Kids do this kind of stuff. And of course the guy Steve Buscemi comes in with the, you know, green cardigan on, and, just orders a milkshake or whatever, and they just watch him and whatever, and then Enid decides, let's follow him home, and they follow him back to his place, and then later on, I think they end up happening, I don't know if they deliberately go back there, probably. I think later on they deliberately go back to look, to scope out a little more closely where he lives or whatever. They end up coming across this, apartment complex garage sale or whatever, where these characters just sit there. I don't know if it's one day every week, same day, just try to sell their crap or whatever. They come across, his name ends up Steve Buscemi's character's name ends up being revealed as Seymour, I think, and he ends up selling Enid this old record with some of these old songs, very much with the same kind of music from the the soundtrack of the documentary that he did, Crumb. Some of these old early 20th century just jazz or whatever the hell you want to call it, just this I guess, for lack of a better term, black music from the first part of the first half or first quarter of the 20th century. And she actually plays it and ends up quite liking this one tune on it and stuff like that. Ends up going back to the rummage sale or whatever that is to say that she actually really liked the record and one of the songs on there. And that kind of starts this relationship. She's like, and Steve Buscemi's, they're talking about old music, and she's like, do you have any more records like this? And Steve Buscemi's an avid, like, I don't know, there's some old records, I don't know what speed it is, if it's 78s, is it 78s, like these old record speeds or whatever. He's like this avid collector of these old 78s. If they're not 78s, I'm going to just say 78s, meaning what they really are or whatever. And he's like, do you want to see some of the old 78s I got? So, she's like, oh, okay. And she's got an actual genuine, interest in this music now, that she, being a young person who recently graduated high school, maybe hadn't heard this music before. She's generally, interested. This went from pranking this guy and just doing a prank on him to get a laugh out of him to be like, oh, she's coming back because she's generally interested in the music and stuff. And it basically starts this friendship, basically with Enid and Seymour. I think Seymour is his name. So as I said earlier, the film also features scenes where Enid, the character of Enid, has to take this summer art class to, I guess, get a credit to actually get the diploma or whatever, even though she, like, I don't understand that, because didn't she get the diploma, at the beginning of the movie? Or maybe she got a piece of paper that says in order to get it, you got to take this class. They don't make it really clear, but as I said, she takes this summer art class, which features this one chick, who's famous from all kinds of movies, Cape Fear 91 or Cape Fear, is it Cape Fear 91? Yeah, Cape Fear 91, and what the hell's her name? Eilena Douglas, or whatever the hell her name is the goofy ass, like hippie art teacher, which, again, very much like the film Napoleon Dynamite. I mean, it just interjects some more goofiness in another goofy character. And, the stuff that they come up with, I gotta tell you, when I was first watching it, I was just like, yeah, this is whatever, but, the stuff is funny, and it's just offbeat and just kind of funny stuff. I'm not gonna obviously mention all the funny stuff that happens at the art class, but there's this one chick who's like doing this BS like found art crap and is always getting praise from the art teacher, and meanwhile, oh, I didn't mention that like Enid's like a sketcher and she draws stuff and this and that. Very much, see, there's again, I wonder if Napoleon Dynamite just ripped this movie off and said, okay, we're going to do the same thing, but we're just going to make the characters guys. Because Napoleon Dynamite drew too. I think Enid's probably a better drawer than Napoleon Dynamite. Like, his drawings were more just blatantly bad to be bad on purpose and stuff. Where at least, I think the drawings that Enid does is actually a little more what one could call art or whatever. But yeah, so throughout the course of the movie, we keep as we keep going back and forth between exploits with Enid and her friend, whatever her name is. What's her friend's name? Rebecca, then her exploits with Seymour and stuff. We also see scenes throughout the movie with her at this goofy-ass summer art class and stuff. And as the movie wears on and Enid's relationship with Seymour grows, it becomes clear that she's, actually guilty for pranking Seymour or whatever. And one time when she's at her place, the phone rings and there's a message, the answer machine gets it, and this woman leaves a message, and about, oh, I was the blonde that was at the supermarket or whatever, and already being pranked. Seymour just thinks it's another prank or the same person or something like that. Meanwhile, Enid is like, oh my God, this is probably real because, you know, I'm not pranking him unless someone else is. So at this point, Enid's like, kind of feels guilty that she pranked him and, you know, whatever. And so she's like, she kind of encourages him to, you know, actually respond to the call. Or I think before that happened, she was already trying to like get Seymour dates and stuff because I think she felt guilty about pranking him and this and that. And as she gets to know Seymour, she becomes to realize that, you know, there's a lot more to this guy than just his goofy ass outer shell or outer appearance or whatever. And I think genuinely really wants to hook him up with a woman or whatever. And I think later on into that process, then he gets that phone call from the blonde woman or whatever, and she, you know, Enid wants him to actually get together with her and stuff like that. So, you know, I don't know if that's like 50 minutes into the movie or something like that at this point. The movie's like 111 minutes. It's nearly 2 hours long, so that might be, you know, where you are in the movie around that point. Meanwhile, if you're a Scarlett Johansson fan, which I'm not really necessarily in one way or another, but if you happen to be, you might at this point in the movie be wondering, like, where the hell is she? Because, you know, as I said, you know, her appearance in the movie was more heavy in the beginning, and then like halfway through or whatever, her character kind of fades off to the side, which I guess is it makes sense or appropriate because that's what happens in the movie basically, is that as the summer wears on and she gets more close, or, you know, not close in a big way, but with Seymour, like the relationship between, you know, Enid and Rebecca is dissolving or whatever. They originally had plans to get a, you know, a place together, apartment together or whatever, and be roommates and stuff. And, you know, as the movie wears on, you know, Rebecca gets a job and she's looking for an apartment, whereas Enid's just like not getting a job and is just living at home. And another bit of, you know, drama in her life is, you know, her dad reconnecting with some old flame girlfriend of his, and, you know, that Enid doesn't like, and which is actually, is that Terry Garr? I want to say that that's Terry Garr who plays the old girlfriend of Enid's dad in a brief, I think she only makes one appearance, so I don't know if it's deemed as a cameo. I don't know if she's in the credits or not, but I think that's Terry Garr who plays the, you know, the former fling of Enid's dad, who's coming back into, you know, her dad's life and subsequently back into hers, as long as, you know, she's living at home, because later on in the movie her dad, as her life is falling apart, her dad makes the, you know, the announcement that the old girlfriend's going to come back to live with them, and, you know, that sends, you know, Enid crying and hysterics, and because she doesn't like her and all this and that. So I don't know if it's like the hour, somewhere around the hour mark of the movie, like Enid's life is just all crumbling or whatever, and she does try getting a job at a movie theater, which is really funny, where she's just not upselling drink sizes, or she's, you know, she's not doing this or that, and there's this one, her supervisor guy is just funny, and he's like a character who seems like he was in Napoleon Dynamite too. I don't know if it's the same guy. The guy seems really familiar, but if this guy wasn't in Napoleon Dynamite, he seems like someone who was in Napoleon Dynamite, you know, the supervisor at the movie theater when Enid tries to work at a movie theater for one day. I think she gets fired on the first day or whatever. That scene is kind of interesting, where, you know, she's just, I don't know, talking trash about the movie or not upsizing, and I can't remember specifics, but I remember that scene is fun. So as the movie wears on, Enid becomes more disconnected with her friend Rebecca, as Rebecca is actually kind of, I mean, I guess for, you know, quote unquote, you know, being a little more of a success by getting a job and actually looking to find a place to live, and, you know, the dream or the thought of them rooming together seems less and less like a reality because Enid can't get and keep a job and this and that. So as the movie wears on, Enid's just dealing with this and that or whatever, and this and that. And also when actually, it's kind of ironic, because then when Steve Buscemi character, is it Seymour? I want to say it's Seymour. If it's not, you know, I'll put the correct name on the screen in red letters. He actually does end up meeting with that blonde that he actually put the ad in the paper for, and there actually ends up being a relationship where it's kind of a weird relationship, because, I mean, she doesn't really like what he likes, and I don't know if he likes what she likes, but I guess, I mean, obviously he can't really be, you know, beggars can't really be choosers or whatever, and the blonde woman's, you know, definitely kind of attractive, quote unquote, I guess, and definitely out of his league, so he better, even though they don't necessarily have anything in common, you better go with it or whatever. And as that relationship between Seymour and that blonde woman is actually working out, that kind of, I don't know, I guess that makes, and also as Enid's, you know, drifting further away from her friend Rebecca and stuff, and she can't get a job, and she just, it's kind of isolating the character of Enid, you know, and she just kind of becomes depressed as the, you know, into the, you know, second hour of the movie or whatever, and I don't know if she tries to, I don't think she tries to sabotage the relationship between, you know, Seymour and the blonde necessarily, but yeah, she just gets, at one point in the movie, she just is feeling so hopeless and unwanted that she just shows up at Seymour's apartment, and she's just like, no one likes me, do you like me? And basically they end up drinking a bottle of wine together, and they actually end up getting together and presumably screwing, I guess. So, you know, Seymour and Enid end up screwing together, and you can tell in the next scene where she's like all covered up in blankets and stuff that she's like regretful or whatever. She did it just being in a low spot and being drunk or whatever. So basically, because there was talk about, I think while she was drunk, about, you know, Enid saying, oh, I should move in with you or whatever, and when so then, you know, now, of course, Seymour's got this idea that, oh, I'm gonna, you know, dump the blonde woman to, it's kind of unrealistic in a way, because I don't know if you'd really even do this. Dump the blonde woman who's more his age to like have this, you know, just recently graduated from high school girl move in or whatever. So basically this is the part of the movie, you know, so I like kind of that part, the first hour 10 minutes or hour 15 minutes, but once this stuff started happening where, you know, they sleep together and Seymour dumps the woman he's with, that's actually quote unquote kind of working out just for, you know, for Enid, and only to have Enid like just, I don't know, disappear, and so now Seymour dumped the woman for her, and she doesn't, you know, want him because it was just a one night stand, and she was drunk or whatever and low. So it's, I don't know, I find like the movie, you know, it starts interesting and then it actually starts going towards a place 30 minutes, 40 minutes into the movie, you know, that you didn't expect, where Enid first is just, you know, pranking this guy and making fun of this guy, and then a relationship forms, and I think that part of the movie is like really sincerely endearing and stuff like that, and it's funny because for the most part I don't like happy endings, but this movie I actually would rather prefer if, you know, like Enid and Seymour or whatever just got together like happily ever after, because what ends up happening is she made the mistake with Seymour, and, you know, the relationship with you know, Enid and Rebecca is just basically kind of more or less done. They just went separate ways, and she, you know, when she was drunk and just before screwing Seymour, she was like, don't you ever just want to just leave town and just go somewhere, anywhere, or whatever. So basically what ends up happening is through all Enid's failed attempts at, you know, friendship or, you know, and or love and or, you know, trying to find a job and stuff, and she ends up just getting on a bus at the end of the movie and just like leaving, and that's like the end of the movie. And Seymour meanwhile is in like counseling, back to square one, and back where he started. Actually he seems even more miserable than he was when we met him, because at least, well, I don't know, I guess he's probably just back to square one or whatever. Meanwhile, I guess Rebecca's just, you know, gonna work her coffee place job and live in her apartment or whatever. But I mean, I found the movie to be like, you know, halfway through it or whatever, to be like in a really great spot where it was like, you know, starting with this girl making fun of this guy, and then this guy's becoming more important to her as the movie goes on, and I was like, well, that's really kind of cool, and it was handled in a way that I thought was great. And I don't like how it ends. I don't like the downward slope toward, at the end, you know, last half of the movie, the downward slope that it takes, and, you know, where it ends up, and her just leaving town, and, you know, Seymour's life being ruined, and, you know, split up with her, you know, best friend or good friend or whatever. It's just like the end, and it's just like, well, yeah, I mean, generally I kind of like an ending like that, but in this case, it's a very rare case. It's just like, I don't like this, you know, more or less downtrodden or just down, you know, depressed ending. I'd actually want something that's a little more happy, or happily ever after in this case. So and it's really tough for me. It's somewhere between 2.5 and 2 3/4 stars out of 4 stars. I guess I can go as high as 2 3/4 stars out of 4 stars for Ghost World, because just some of the goofy ass funny antics that happen in the movie and stuff like that are just funny, and the randomness and the you know, the humor is just kind of, it's, I don't know, it's funny and stuff like that. So I'll go as high as 2 3/4 stars out of 4 stars for Ghost World. Now on to the review of the Criterion Blu-ray that I picked up because of the 50% off sale, so I got this bad boy for $20, and I wasn't really willing to pay any more than that for it. I'm not sure if this very well might be the first Blu-ray release of this movie in North America. I don't know if this is on a Blu-ray, if this came out on Blu-ray before this or not, but regardless, this is the only Blu-ray, or the only disc for that matter, that I have with this movie at all. So once again, came out in 2017 by Criterion Collection. As you can see, the director approved Blu-ray special edition features are, I'm not going to read all these, but you've got a new restored 4K digital transfer supervised by the co-writer director with 5.1 surround DTS HD master audio soundtrack, commentary with the co-writer / director and the Ghost World comic creator and film co-writer and producer. New interviews with actors Thora Birch, Scarlett Johansson, and Ilina. Is that how you say it? Iliana? I don't know how to say her first name. Douglas. I don't know. Like I say, then you can read the rest of this stuff here. But obviously, this is the first and only disc I've ever seen this movie on, and obviously, I would imagine this is probably the best way to see Ghost World on home video. I would imagine Criterion, release of the film. It looks absolutely, fantastic for a movie in 2001. By this time, I mean film stock. My favorite film stock era is probably like, I don't know, the 80s and the early 90s. By this time, I'm not too keen on, I don't know how even movies shot on film necessarily look or whatever. I did a little bit of the movie in the 5.1, and this movie probably isn't going to be a house rattler in the 5.1 arena anyway. But I can say definitely that the image quality is really great in this release, and as I said, most likely probably the best image quality you're going to find on just Blu-ray for home viewing pleasure in North America anyway. When you open up the case, you see this disc with Ghost World on it, with kind of the artwork, or with a design reminiscent of the old records from the first half of the 20th century that Seymour collects. And then, as I said, on this side here, you've got like a comic book reproduction of presumably one of the comic books that the movie was based on. So you've got a reproduction of 8-Ball here apparently. I don't know if there was two different comics. It says, look for Lovely Enid and Ghost World are feature attractions. So I don't know if there was two different comics, Ghost World and 8-Ball, featuring these characters or not, but you actually get an idea without having to buy a comic what the movie was based on, which is kind of fun. There's not a whole hell of a lot of pages, but it'll definitely give you the idea of what the movie was based on. Then you've got this booklet thingy with a cover like this and a back like that. I really like that artwork. I don't know how people get so inspired to do such, striking artwork, but leave it to Criterion. They'll get it every time. So it's a 36-page booklet just featuring this and that, photos, behind-the-scenes photos, this and that about the movie. Kind of fun because it features reproductions of some of the drawings that were, drew by the character of Enid of Seymour in the movie. There's more of them. So I actually like that. That's cool. See, it's very Napoleon Dynamite-ish kind of drawings. I'd say these drawings are better than the stuff he draws, though. And then a reproduction of a drawing that one of the students draws in the summer art class. This reminds me of drawings a friend of mine used to do in high school. Probably a pretty cool booklet if I were, if I was an avid reader or any kind of reader. I can read to prove that this says about the music, but I don't know, I just tend not to. But obviously this part of the booklet's about the music chosen to be featured in the movie. So inside the case, behind the disc and the booklet, there's all kinds of what look to be Polaroids of just, I don't know, behind the scenes characters, behind the scenes moments, and this and that. Maybe production Polaroids just for continuity, wardrobe continuity, wardrobe tests, who knows, just all kinds of little Polaroid pictures from behind the scenes of the making of the movie. So it's kind of interesting how, the movie doesn't necessarily blow my ass away, but I like it, and the Criterion release is very much the same way, where it doesn't blow my ass away, but I like it, and it's not something definitely that I wouldn't have wanted to pay any more than $20 for. I mean, if you can find this at, in a clearance bin or something like that on DVD, you're probably not going to find the Criterion Blu-ray in the clearance bin necessarily, but if you can find it on DVD for $3 or something like that, or just, free streaming on Prime or online in general or whatever, I'd recommend taking, 111 minutes out of your life to at least give it a shot. You don't have to finish it, but the humor, if you've seen Napoleon Dynamite or whatever, I'm sure there's other movies with this kind of humor as well. You'll probably like this movie. So yeah, the movie definitely has. Oh, and before I end this review, the opening credits is probably one of the best parts of the movie, where it features some old Japanese, like 60s Japanese dance show or something like that, and the song and the little, they show they show actual footage from the show and stuff, and the opening credits is that little piece of music, and the little dance number of the 60s TV show or whatever, and that's really cool. It's probably one of the more actually creative. Visually, it's ironic because the most visually stimulating part of this movie is an old TV show, little dance TV show from, Japanese dance TV show from the 60s or whatever, but the movie gets off to kind of a fun start with that, and the character, Thora Birch's character of Enid, dancing to that and stuff like that. So, I definitely, if you were to put Napoleon Dynamite or this, in front of me, I'd probably pick this, being a heterosexual male and stuff. I mean, it's a fun, goofy, quirky movie that it's just, it doesn't think it's frickin' Citizen Kane or anything like that. It knows what it is, and it's just having some fun, and I guess that's pretty much it at the end of the day. Thank you very much for watching my review, and as always, we'll catch you on the next one.